Welcome to the Witching Hour with Carrie. Today we will have 5 special guests that have had encounters with the beyond. Everything from Bigfoot to famous spirits of the past. Join me. Esmeralda! Wakey wakey! Are you in there?
What do you want? I'm awake.
I want to know who's going to be on the show today.
Bigfoot stuff, reptilians, famous ghosts, demons. You get the idea.
Very spooky.
Why do you always come to me when you need something? And when are you going to let me out of here?
I'm sorry I put you in there, but this is a safer place for you.
You're the worst.
So Dory, thank you so much for joining us on the Witching Hour with Carrie. I heard that you have a pretty famous ghost story that you want to talk about today.
Yes.
Awesome.
I recently discovered that I may have a pretty famous ghost haunting my childhood home.
Ghost, yes.
So,
And who is this ghost?
well, that's what I'll get into.
Okay.
And you can kind of decide what you think. So I grew up in a very old home that was built in the 1800s in Swansea, Massachusetts, which is right outside of Fall River, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And the very famous case of Lizzie Borden, that family was from Fall River, Massachusetts.
Oh.
So,
And for those of you who do not know who Lizzie Borden is, she killed her mother and father with an axe. Very famous story.
yeah, so Swansea was a town that was really famous for wealthy people to vacation in. It was a beach town, and so the Bordens had multiple properties throughout Swansea. And, you know, growing up in this old house, I was very spooked out a lot. And I never really could figure out why. I thought that I was just kind of a scared person.
Yeah.
There was never really any like specific super like that is definitely a ghost moment. Just a series of small creepy things.
Yeah. So what are some
And
of these?
then-
What are some of these events? That have happened at the house.
Well, I pieced it all together when my mom sent me an article noting all of the Borden properties throughout Swansea, and one was right across the street from my house.
Oh, lucky
And-
you! Lucky you!
And I learned that the man who built our home and who lived in our home was the property manager for that house that was
wow.
right across the street from me.
Wow.
And that home is, most people think, is the reason that Lizzie Borden killed her dad and her stepmom
Wow.
over the will of that home.
Wow, that's crazy.
So it was really beloved to her. And when her father made the decision to give it to her stepmom, the next day later was when someone killed her parents.
Very interesting. Wow, that's
But
crazy.
some of those things that, I started to piece together. There were 2 big ones that came to mind. And one was our backyard. It was sort of a long rectangle shape. And at the end of it is right across the street from the Borden property. And that backyard, I used to love playing in the yard as a kid. And that backyard always really scared me a lot. And I had what I thought was an imaginary friend, but looking back, I think it was a ghost.
Okay.
And it was a man who was always working. He had maybe this 10-foot piece of land that he would just he was maybe plowing or raking, just kind of moving back and forth all day.
Oh, wow.
And I remember him sort of always I always get the vibe that he didn't want me to talk to him. He didn't like having me there. So
Or maybe he couldn't hear you, or you know what I mean? Like
Right.
he's on another dimension, possibly. And it sounds like it could be someone that was possibly a property manager from the past. So,
Right. So I stopped playing in that part of the yard, and it
Yeah.
still to this day gives me
goosebumps.
creepy feelings.
That's amazing. Did you ever experience anything inside the home at all?
So there was this one time, and this is what really tied it all together for me. I was probably about 10, and I was at that age when you come home from school and just watch TV. You know, my parents weren't home.
Right.
And I was watching Disney's Smart Guy was a
Okay.
show on at the time. And it was about, it was like this little boy genius. He had older
Yeah.
siblings. And it was a Halloween episode where the older siblings were trying to scare their little brother.
Okay.
And so they had, I guess he was learning about Lizzie Borden in his school. And they the older siblings put on this like creepy pig costume, and they were singing the Lizzie Borden song.
And remind everyone what the Lizzie Borden song is.
It goes something like, Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. And so they were singing it over and over again, being really creepy.
Yeah.
And then I remember I was sitting in a recliner, and all of a sudden, right behind me, I just felt like this really intense, like, energy. And I just got up and screamed and ran and hid in my bed. And I wasn't afraid of the show. I just got this super scary feeling that I couldn't explain.
Yeah, and to me, it almost sounds like the show provoked that, because, you know, that person did have that connection with Lizzie Borden. And I just think it's really interesting that those coincidences happen sometimes, you know, and it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe he is here, and maybe, you know, he was provoked from the other world.
And because I was a kid, a lot of these experiences, you know, I just thought it was sort of normal.
Right.
A lot of spooky things that happened, I was just like, oh, I just live in an old house.
Right.
And it wasn't until, you know, I was older and realized that most people aren't afraid of their homes. Most people aren't afraid of the dark.
How old was this home that you lived in?
It was built in the 1800s. I don't remember the date. It is plastered on my front door, so I should know it.
Yeah.
But it was early 1800s.
Wow. And does your family still own that house? Really?
Yes.
Do you go up and spend time there, like during the summer? Or?
I do, yeah. I go visit my family. I try to twice a year. And there's still those spots of the house that really freak me out.
Yeah.
And what I also think is interesting is the areas of the home where you can see the house that the Bordens owned tend to be some of the creepier spots in my house.
Really?
Like our upstairs bathroom, it has a beautiful old clawfoot tub, and the window like perfectly looks out at the Borden home. And we have issues with plumbing in that room constantly. It was always so scary to take a bath in there as a kid.
Yeah.
And
it makes you wonder, too, it's like, you know, who lived in that home when she was next door? You know, and what kind of connection was that? Because most likely she's been in your house, you know, the house that you grew up in. So that energy doesn't leave either. It's very fascinating.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think that they probably, the owner of the home, Mr. Eddie was his name. I think they probably had a decent relationship because he was the property manager for that house.
Right.
And it was one of her most beloved places to go.
Right.
Like she would escape the city and just go stay there. So I assume they probably had a decent relationship.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I wonder, you know, it could be his spirit like protecting her and looking over the house, or it could be a safe place where she goes back to.
Absolutely. And that's what I truly believe, that I'm sure she's there and they're just hanging out together and in her happy place, you know, or maybe somewhere a little darker, who knows.
So the way that it's set up, my house is on like a 4-corner stop. It's a corner, it's called Luther's Corner, and it's been there forever.
Yeah.
And so there's my house on one corner, there's, now it's a museum, a very small museum on the other corner, and then this house on this corner here. That house has had, since I've lived in our house, it's had 2 or 3 owners, and all of them board up the front of the house because they refuse to live in it because they say it's so haunted.
Oh, wow.
And I haven't heard any specific stories about why. In Swansea, there was a huge King Philip's War. It was between the Native Americans and the, I guess, you know, white people moving in. It was an extremely violent war.
Wow.
And so I think I've always assumed that's where a lot of the haunting comes from. But knowing that Lizzie Borden could be hanging out in that neighborhood, that could also have something to do with it.
Absolutely. You know, I really do believe in, you know, the energy that happens in certain locations. It doesn't just disappear, you know, it's there in the ground. And there are a lot of other locations around the world that are on top of ley lines, which are, you know, forms of energetic like points. And some people believe that those are portals as well. So of course there would be spirits there. You know, they need to be seen through energy. So, you know, they gravitate to those locations. So I think it's just that whole area. There's just been so much that's happened there throughout history, and it's never going to go away. So is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that may not involve the Lizzie Borden house? Do you have any other scary stories? Or
Ooh. I feel like there's just kind of a variety of strange things that have happened over my life that are not very concrete.
Yeah.
Just weird feelings. I always kind of pick up on a space that gives me the goosebumps.
Do you consider yourself more like a sensitive person, or something that, energy is attached to or connects with on a certain level?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I can feel things that most people can't.
Yeah.
It's not very common that I see things or hear, spirits, but I can definitely feel the energy.
Absolutely.
Like right now in our house that we live in a house in Eastridge, and I absolutely feel like there is a male spirit in the home, especially in one corner in the hallway. I can always sort of tell.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that I don't see it, I don't hear it, just sort of feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've experienced that a lot in my, history of the paranormal and investigating and things like that. But we'll save that for another episode for sure. But yeah, I love your story about Lizzie Borden, and maybe sometime in the future we can go do an investigation there. That would be really cool.
Ooh, that would be fun.
Yeah. It's very fascinating. Thank you so much, Dory, for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me in your spooky space.
Of course, anytime. So guys, thank you so much for being here. Today we have Ryan and Bucky, who are Bigfoot hunters. Is that what you like to call that, or is it something?
No, we call it squatching.
Squatching. Okay, so we have some squatchers here, Ryan and Bucky.
It's hunting. We go out with spears and try to find them.
Gotcha.
Not true
okay,
story.
Perfect. Not true. Cool. So can you help me understand a little bit more about this world of squatching and anything that you guys have captured or anything like that?
Yes. So, squatching, let's see. As I was a kid growing up in the woods, it's like you're always interested in what's in the woods, all the noises and things that's happening in the woods. And so the Bigfoot, has been a phenomenon for forever. And it's like, you just get intrigued about it, that would be really cool,
Right.
I mean, yeah, there's got to be. I mean, it's a good possibility that's there. Just going out and finding it is a different story.
Right.
So,
now, quick question for you guys. Do you think, because I have my own views on this as well, do you think that there's a possibility that it's almost like creatures from another dimension? Because I will tell you my personal view on cryptids and Sasquatch, Bigfoot is, I truly believe that there might be other dimensions that we obviously cannot see. And for a second, they're kind of blipping in and out of almost like timelines or dimensions, if you will. That's personally what I believe. What
yeah, I
about
mean, I was very skeptical about that at the beginning because Bucky had that kind of mindset and stuff going into it, and then there's a lot of people that, they want to compare it to UFO and all this stuff, and it's the dimension thing, and so I was like, I can't see that. But now that I've been getting into it more, it's like I can be out there, not see hardly anything, but can go back and then check my photos, my videos, and go, zoom in frame by frame, and they're all over the place.
Right.
And it's like, it's just so crazy. So I don't know if it's, it's got, I think maybe something to do with that. I don't know, because it just is, it's crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I've actually seen a lot of footage where, people claim to see a Bigfoot come in and then it just vanishes literally on film, which is, reason to believe that maybe they are coming in and out of other dimensions.
Right.
It's a possibility,
This is
I guess.
definitely a possibility now.
Yeah.
So.
Great. So do you guys want to talk about some of your evidence? Have you captured anything that we could see?
Do you want to tell her about what we found?
Yeah, sure. So we're just, we're on this road, and it's way back in the woods. Nobody, there's not a house, a person is around for miles and miles. And so we hear this, and Bucky sees the eyes, right? I'm like, well, let's kind of move our way in that direction. And so we get up there and we get around the corner, and we had our flashlights just shining around, and then this little structure, basically, it was almost like think about a teepee. It just had a little, just branches.
Like a little shelter or
yeah, like a
something.
little shelter.
Yeah.
But it was really, it was only maybe like this tall. It wasn't very big, It's like there's no way a Sasquatch could like really fit in there unless it
Right.
was a small, very small one.
Right.
And so we walked over, was looking at it, and there was a tree over there by it that had fell down and it had rotted, and you could see where somebody's had their hands and like going in under the bark and stuff and just raking it like this, getting the grub worms and stuff out of it
Right.
and eating it. And so we're like, I mean, who else is going to be doing that in the
Right.
woods, right? I mean, like, this is way back in the woods and like, in a natural forest. I mean,
It could have been a bear, but
but not the
logically, a bear would have to be like, it was a little bit higher up.
Uh-huh.
So if it was a bear, it would have to put itself in a really weird position to get up there.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
only say that because that's going to be one of the biggest rebuttals to the whole Sasquatch thing is that it's a bear. It's a bear. It's a
well,
bear.
Yeah.
I've got evidence to show that. I don't know of a black bear that has a brown face. I mean, does anybody? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I've never seen a black bear with a brown
I've actually
face.
I've seen footage before, some Sasquatch footage where he was doing exactly what you're describing here, where he's just like reaching in the tree and ripping stuff out
Right.
pretty aggressively,
Yeah.
and building these shelters with it. So it was very fascinating that you guys said that, because I've seen footage like that.
Yeah, and this was all within like an area of maybe like 50 feet of each other.
Wow.
So it's all real compacted.
Yeah.
So that was the first encounter. Is there any more to that?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so after that, we started looking around and we started finding very faint footprints. We found what looks like handprints,
Okay.
which I keep going back to myself as a reference because it really just looked like something my size was there. And like we found an indention, like it looked like where something was kneeling.
Palm. It was a
Yeah.
palm, and you can see the thumb and a palm print.
Oh, wow.
You could see where it looked like somebody had their fingers, like
Yeah,
somebody
like
was
this, like yeah,
knuckled
like that.
down. But after that, it got to where we started hearing grunts. We started getting howls,
Growls.
growls. We was being chased. Had more rocks thrown at us.
What does the Sasquatch sound like? Does
Yeah.
anyone want to
Go
try
for
that
it.
out?
I'm not very good at doing a call.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do. They do
Let's hear
the whoop sound. It's like
whoop,
whoop. It's like whoop. But I mean, I've had more.
So it's very similar to ICP, Insane Clown Posse.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Okay,
That's it.
great.
That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I got
Maybe
it. I don't know.
that's who knows. Maybe they know more than we think they know.
Right.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit about the evidence you guys have captured? Like, one really compelling piece to me
Yeah.
is the video, and it's what is it, like 10, 15 feet away from you?
Well, it was a little bit further away. I was
okay.
all the way zoomed in on
Okay.
my camera, something like that. But prior to this video, I actually have more videos of before this. But we were coming up the ridge, and my buddy went with me because I took him with me so he could video, because I'm very bad about videoing and doing squatching at the same time because it's awful.
You just get too distracted, too into it. You're like, gotta find the Squatch.
He's like, "You smell that?" I'm like, "No, I don't smell anything." He's like, "Smells like weed, man." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "I hope we don't come up on somebody's grow area or something." I'm like, dude, that could be a Sasquatch, man. They
smell like weed?
They smell like weed. They stink.
Wow.
Smell like a skunk.
Smell like a skunk,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
The ridge after that, and then I just happened to just hear some commotion going on over here, and I'm going down the ridge, and I just look over to my right. I get my camera out, and I'm looking, and I'm just like panning around and looking, and all of a sudden, that's when I came up on that, the video that I shot. It was like, wait a second, what is this? Here I'm screaming like, "Hey man, I got a Sasquatch! This is a Sasquatch!" I was like cussing. I'm like, "Hell yeah!" I'm like, "This is crazy! Like, people are not gonna believe this." To me, I mean, that's got to. I mean,
Really
what else
great.
can it be?
Right.
It's like
I think it's a very interesting piece of footage. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I can tell that that's fur, and it almost looked to me like they were just like laying down.
That's what it looked like to me.
And I can almost see where the knee is and the leg is bent.
Like nonchalantly, just
Right,
laying like
just
this.
kinda
like,
laying on the
"Hey, what
side."
you doing?
He sent it to me before he posted it. He was like, "Dude, check this out. Tell me what you see."
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
almost see an eye as well. Like it's
You can
very,
see, you can
it's
see the
brown.
tip. You can see how big his nose is kind of flat and how big it is. You can see the
Right.
nose. One time I went out there. There's a skeleton of a deer, like the face of a deer, that's hanging right? They had taken some kind of vine
Yeah.
and hung it from this tree. It's just hanging there, right?
Wow.
And it's got all these little crazy little knots in it and stuff, how they got it hung. It
Yeah.
just blows my mind. There's no way a person, a normal person, a human would go out there
They
and
wouldn't
do
use
something.
they wouldn't use a vine to
They would
hang
not.
this
No.
deer, even if they were hunting a deer and they wanted to like skin it or something like that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't use a vine.
Well, and
they
not
would
only-
have supplies.
Not only
Look
that,
at your major predators in that area. A mountain lion's not going to drag a deer up there. It costs
Right.
too much energy for them to do that, to eat
Yeah.
it. They may in a short area. A bear might, but at the same time, it's going to cost a lot of energy.
But they're probably not gonna hang them.
Yeah, they're not
from
going
a
to
tree
hang it from
either.
a tree or a
you know?
vine. What is it going to take for somebody to really just say, okay, that's here? Is it going to be like the UFOs, where our government's finally admitted that, hey, we've got stuff coming from other places?
Right. But on the note of aliens, Bucky, I think you've got like a short story about a possible alien abduction.
I used to be absolutely terrified of everything. I remember watching the show Faces of Death whenever I was really young.
Ooh.
I did that. Yeah.
And I don't know if I had anxiety or if I had what. I had a dream that was very vivid. And I remember waking up and there was this overwhelming peaceful feeling. And when I say overwhelmingly peaceful, I mean like I've never experienced anything like it before. And it was your typical green, gray alien creatures, and one of them come to me and didn't even say anything. And it was just light. And this thing just kind of leaned over to me.
And said, "Come to me, Bucky."
You're such a fucker. he leaned over to me and said, don't worry, you're going to go back home, everything's okay.
Interesting. And you remember this?
I remember that vividly. And I woke up and I had a heart-shaped scar right around where your appendix is. And then I had like these little spot burns, and I remember there were 6 across and 3 deep burns like on my waistline.
Wow.
I wasn't afraid of anything after that.
Yeah.
After that, I was the type that now, whenever somebody mentions something paranormal, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go.
Sign me
It doesn't
up.
scare
Let's
me.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's see it. I do want you to talk about something you captured, an apparition.
Yeah. Well, I went to an old schoolhouse. It was built in 1909. And they've told me that there's a negative energy in there, and then there's some positive energies, kind of like a school teacher. So, the one that I actually showed you, we think was the school teacher, that it was her classroom, and that they felt kind of connected to me. And in this video too, I was also holding dowsing rods, and the girl said, "Hey, if you like Bucky, give him a hug and point the dowsing rods at him." So I'm holding them, and they go,
Interesting.
and
Yeah.
I just got cold chills, and I
bet.
reacted to it. I like being funny. I like being good.
And you got a new
So,
friend.
I did get a new friend.
You got a
So
ghost friend.
Yeah.
after that is whenever we actually caught the picture. Somebody was snapping a picture of the room, and I had walked by, and as I walked by, I got out of the frame, and he snapped that picture, and she was there.
Wow.
She was following you.
Yeah, she was following me.
It's a really impressive photo.
Yeah, it's really detailed.
That's amazing. Well, I would love to come and investigate the schoolhouse. And also, I want to thank both of you guys for coming and talking to me about everything from Sasquatch to alien abduction to apparitions. You have a lot of things that seem to gravitate towards you, Bucky, and Ryan.
And me, I'm gravitated towards you,
gravitated towards me,
Bucky.
too.
Yes.
Because I'm as big as the planet.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes,
This is
of
great,
course.
great
Thank
fun.
you guys
Thanks for listening.
so much. Please come back anytime.
Yep. Thanks for watching, everybody.
How does it feel to be stuck in a crystal ball?
Esmeralda, let me out of here. Why did you put me in here?
My powers have gotten a lot stronger, you know.
This is unacceptable. Let me out of here this instant.
I was trapped in there for way too long.
You're the worst sister ever.
No, you're the worst sister ever.
Let me out.
No, I'm gonna do the rest of the interviews.
You're not going to interview those people.
Haha.
You're in deep trouble.
That's what you get for putting me in there for so long.
Esmeralda, let me out now. I'm trapped in here.
No.
Esmeralda.
This is my show now. So, my next guest is my friend Eric, and he has a lot of paranormal stories. They seem to just follow you around, Eric. So, why don't we start with the alien stories?
Yes. So a bunch of crazy shit has happened through my life, like when I was younger, and a bunch of stuff, but like it all started at Starbucks, like
Starbucks.
2016. Worked there for a year before they fired me, but
This is the truest form of evil. Starbucks. No offense.
definitely.
You can
Gunbarrel
sponsor
Road,
us.
Hamilton Place.
Yeah.
Like that whole area is just like fucking the most evil part of Chattanooga.
Oh, 100%.
But so I'd heard of lizard people or like shapeshifters before, but I was just like, yeah, whatever. It's like a friend of mine, old friend of mine, was telling me when we were smoking weed or something one day, and I was like, oh yeah, whatever. And so the very first time I saw a shapeshifter, I was working the drive-thru at Starbucks, and this guy that comes by like a couple times a week, he drives like this like Porsche convertible, bald dude, looks like the Monopoly guy wearing sunglasses, smokes a cigar. I'm just like, he's just annoying, you know, never tipped. But he pulls through. I'm like, I love to stare at people through the screen or like through the video feed. I'm just like looking at them as they order, and I'm like looking at them, and all of a sudden like the fucking top of his bald ass head just starts like moving like this, or like doing some weird shit, and I was just like, what the fuck was that? Like maybe the camera was fucked up or something, but I was just like, what was that? And then when he pulled through and I gave him his drink, his behavior was different than normal. It was very short. He was like ready to go. That was the first time, and then they kept coming, man. Like
Just a bunch of lizard people wanting to get Starbucks lattes.
there's at least one a day.
Wow.
Like just one experience a day where I was just like, holy fuck, what is up with these motherfuckers, you know? Like
What are some of the other lizard people, you know, did you see?
at Starbucks?
Yeah.
So one of my most memorable ones was this like really beautiful like ethnic lady like pulled through in like a Honda Odyssey like soccer mom van, you know. And I didn't notice anything in the camera or whatnot. I think we were so busy I didn't even give a shit like looking at it.
Right.
But like she was pulling up and acting kind of strange, and I had the thought in my head. I was just like, is this a lizard person? It was like not really a fitting vehicle or like whatever that I think one would be in.
It's like, is there a specific car that lizard people should drive?
Yeah, like black Mercedes, white Mercedes, brand new.
Yeah.
But this one was wild because she just starts like convulsing in the car, and she's the only person in the car, and I'm just looking at her like, what the fuck is going on? She's like convulsing and everything, and she finally gets up to, like, as soon as I have the thought in my head, she starts like convulsing in the car. She gets up to the drive-thru and like hand her drink, and I shit you not, like her hands go around the cup, and it's just like scratches my hand, and her hands are like scaly fucking fingers, like fucking like sharp nails, just like scratched my hand and grabbed it. Like as soon as she pulled up the window, that's when she stopped, like like whatever. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
and it scratched me. I'm just like,
She's either having way too much fun or she's a lizard person.
yeah,
For sure.
don't fucking know.
Who knows? Was there something with like a family of
Yeah.
shapeshifters?
So this was the day at Starbucks that I got my coworkers who always made like poked fun and like not really ridiculed, but just made fun of me because I'd talk about the shit, and
Yeah.
they like didn't notice really. But this was the day that they kind of took my side, because my like shift lead Natalie and my coworker Jed, shout out to them, they're fucking awesome people. But this was the day that they were just like, maybe you're onto something, because like this family walks in and it's like husband, wife, 2 kids, like, looking like Aryan descent or some shit. I don't know, but they walk in. They're all wearing black. And I'm, like, standing, like, right at the threshold of, like, the office and, like, the front of house by, like, the fucking case with the birthday pops and shit in them. But I'm chilling there, and Natalie's standing next to me. I was like, yo. I was like, this might be a whole family album or something. I don't remember what I said. I was like, yo, check this out. Like, check these people out. Because they walked in looking a little sus, and I was just like, shit. Check this out. And as soon as, like, we looked at them, they were walking up to the counter to order. They stop in their tracks. The parents, like, motion to the kids to leave, like, to go out to the car, and then they just, like, awkwardly, like, look around, like, pick up a coffee mug, set it down, and just walk out. My coworker's like, what the fuck was that? It was like, just, like, strange behavior. I know there's a bunch of, like, weird behavior, like, okay. But furthermore, that was the beginning of, like, the whole fucking shape-shifting reptilian lizard people shit. Like, it gets really crazy.
Yeah. So they're, like, kind of attracted to you because, you know, I've never met anyone with this many accounts of lizard people and shapeshifters throughout their life.
There was, it was, like, thankfully not anymore. I've kind of, like, gotten away from that whole thing. But, like, so anyways, that kind of induced, like, a very, very strong curiosity about it. And, like, that made me want to fucking figure the shit out, like, make sense of, like, what I'd seen and experienced.
Where do you think they come from?
So I've like, I used to think it was, like, Alpha Draconis star system or something like that. Like, that's what I was, like, reading about or something. Honestly, I don't know where they come from, but, like, through, like, looking it up, I'm like, oh, there's so much shit about this, and obviously tons of misinformation and just, like, fear-mongering and just, like, I got a few stories.
Okay. Because I was about to say, this is not the only thing that you've encountered over your life. There's much, much more. So, let's talk about the spirits that you have.
Where to begin? Okay, so this is a story probably, I think it was 2017. We started longboarding a lot, me and my band, roommates and everything. Like, and one day we went out to Igo Gap Road in Hamilton Place over there. And went up to the top of the hill. It's like, here's Gun Barrel, here's the interstate. It's like up the hill. And we went to the top of the hill and we bombed the street on longboards in the middle of the night with no street lights, no helmet. Completely just reckless decision to do because we could have fucked ourselves up. But we got to the bottom of the hill. We're all like, oh my God, that was crazy. We got this weed. Let's go smoke a bowl. And, like, we go, there's a mega church right there. I don't know what the church is called, but we went over to the parking lot of the church. We're, like, packing a bowl, and our friend Jordan was just like, what the fuck is that? And we look up, and right above the steeple of, like, the giant church right there was a, like, probably, like, 10 to 15 foot in diameter, glowing, like, soft red orb above it. And we all looked at it, and within, like, a second or 2 seconds, it, like, evaporated into, like, a red smoke and just disappeared.
Weird.
But it was, like, huge. We're all just like, what was that? I don't know, a smokable.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before, ever. That's crazy. Especially above, like, a church.
Yeah, it was just, like, right above the steeple, like, the highest point of the church. And I was just like, that's some demonic shit right there.
So, Eric,
yeah,
I do know that you grew up in a haunted house as well, right? Mm-hmm. Could you tell me a little bit about your paranormal experiences in this haunted house?
So there's this house, and we lived there. I remember when I was young, we moved out of there when I was, like, 5 or 6 years old. And, but what I remember is, one of the things, we'd go out to, like, play in the yard or whatnot, and our neighbor, who's this old man, I never saw what he looked like because every time he mowed the yard, his head was a pumpkin. And this is just absurd, but like I will never forget that. I was just, every time I looked at him, he had a pumpkin. He was just like riding some like old fucking lawnmower or something.
Interesting.
But
this might be a new cryptid. Who knows?
Right, fucking pumpkin head. But then there was a thing. My bedroom was situated at the top of the stairs, and I never slept with my bedroom with the door shut, always open. And me and my twin brother both saw this. There was this glowing, like blue, looked like a dinner plate, just going up and down the stairs, like at night. And we had a piano downstairs, and no cat or anything. And the piano would like hit keys throughout the night. Just like, bing, bang, bing, bang. So fast forward, so that house, we moved out of there, and then people moved in. And then every couple of months, there'd be a for sale sign up. I think possibly the house is built on like a native burial ground or something like that. Like there used to be these ghost dogs in the back that me and my brother run back to the fence, and it's just like a bunch of woods behind it. Every time we ran to the fence, there's like a bulldog, and this other dog would just immediately be there. And it was like, there's no fucking yards or anything.
Yeah.
So we thought it was a ghost dog, but
They could be also they could be skinwalkers. I don't know if you've ever heard of skinwalkers. Oh, I figured you had.
But,
You're like, I am a skinwalker. Why do you think I see the pumpkin heads and all this weird shit? Exactly. Yeah. So you have a story as well about a book, right? And maybe it had some demonic aspects to it.
So the book that you're referring to is The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly Hall. And it's basically an encyclopedia of like occultism. I had the book, and I was staying in the guest room at my dad's house like for the night. I wasn't living there, and I was just like flipping through it, and there's a chapter in this. I don't know if I should open it, but there's a chapter in the book that is entitled Ceremonial Magic and Sorcery. And it's super interesting. And then there's like a part of that chapter that's like, if you wish to like summon or like invoke some demons, and it has like their names listed out.
And you don't have to say those names because we don't want any of that.
I don't remember them,
right
thank
now.
goodness.
They're pretty pesky and annoying, so I try to avoid them at all costs.
I was fucking laying face down, or just like laying on my stomach on the bed, like reading it to go to sleep. And I saw the chapter, and it's like, don't do this if you're not like trying to do that. And I was like, all right, I'm not. I'm just gonna skim through the chapter. And so I'm skimming through it. I see some name of apparently a demon or whatever. I can't remember the name, but as soon as I saw it, I read it aloud in my head, and the bed like hit a 45-degree angle and went back and like slung me off the bed. I was just like in complete disbelief. I like got up, like tried to shake the bed, move it. It was like sturdy as fuck. I was just like, whoa.
That's pretty wild.
And then I didn't sleep for, I probably only got like 2 hours of sleep that night.
Yeah.
I was just like, I put the book away, and I was just like sitting there, turn the lights off, turn them back on. I was like, I'm not turning the lights on.
Yeah. Well, Eric, it seems like a lot of stuff follows you, whether that's lizard people, you can astral travel, I believe, just all kinds of stuff. So I really appreciate you being here today and talking to us, and please come back again, and maybe...
I got a bunch of more shit.
Hell yeah. Maybe we will do a paranormal investigation together soon.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So stay tuned, everyone.
Thank
you, Eric. So my next guest is Austin Frizzell.
Hello.
So Austin, you've been on the Witching Hour before.
Yes, I
Correct?
have been.
And I do want to talk about something very interesting that happened during the last filming of the Witching Hour with Austin. Just to recall, you were talking about your grandmother, correct?
Yes.
So when you were doing this, I basically said, you know, she's always with you. And in that moment, we had an entire easel fall behind the camera. And to me, that felt like a sign from her, so.
And the nature of the story as well was receiving signs from her.
Exactly.
And Heck, she gave me one right then.
So I'll play that clip right now.
And, I was like, Grandma, at your funeral, I'm going to sing "Oh Danny Boy" for you. And she said that's morbid and funny, but okay. And at the funeral, I didn't sing. I regretted it. And I don't feel so bad about it now because a few years ago, I was watching a show about mediums. It was the Long Island Medium.
Yes.
Hope I can say that
Absolutely.
on the camera. You know, skeptic or whatnot, it was really interesting to watch, and she's so fun to impersonate. She goes into, I think, like a meat market or something. She's like, I'm getting a father figure, something like this, and oh boy, what? And then she's doing this reading for this guy, and she's like, excuse me for a second. And she goes right to the camera, and she goes, oh, Danny boy. And then she continues reading that other guy. And at the beginning of that episode, I was like, Grandma, send me a message. But that was the intangible
Amazing.
thought. And she went, and whether it was her actually channeling it or not, it was orchestrated by Grandma.
And I love that you've been able to kind of open yourself up to
So, Austin, you are a collector just like I am. So I want you to tell us a couple of stories that are pretty interesting about some things that you found, some artifacts you found in the past.
Well, way back when, which it's kind of funny to think that 2003 or 2004 is way back when, but back then eBay was still fresh and new, and I had finally become somewhat adult and had a job for which I had means, and I got an eBay addiction. And
Don't we all?
Oh man, and it was a bit different back then in the sense that like buying things that were from around the world was I don't know, just had a different energy to it. It wasn't so tapped out as it is now, or contrived, or just made fake to represent things that you got authentic stuff. And what was really cool is I'd always wanted to have like a Cary Grant aesthetic or something like that, and those silk top hats that they could pop out and stuff like that. I was all about them. And so I looked up top hats on eBay, and I found this I believe it was 34 or 33 German Jewish diplomat's hat. Anyways, whenever I got the hat, it came crumpled up and popped out, still looked brand new as the day it was. And on the inside, a Jewish hat maker, and they had their emblem in there with the Star of David, and they had initials or something. And this was a diplomat's hat in the house of the Reichstag, which then had burned, I believe, in late 33 or 34, whenever Hitler came to rise to power. And this hat, I bought it for aesthetic value because it was silk and it looked slick.
Yes.
And so I had it for a couple of years. My roommate at the time, he was an old man. He was 28 and I was 21.
Of course.
And he was attuned to a lot of the occult and many energies. He was a massage therapist. He was also a touch psychic. Fairly early on in knowing him, I told him, hey, I've got this hat. Like you to touch it, see what you have to say about it. So I brought it over to him and didn't tell him anything about it. And he touched it. As soon as he touched it, he did like a little flitter with his fingers. And he like breathed in, and then, he went through his process of connecting, and he started talking, and he was like, I'm a person of perceived power that has all been robbed from me. My voice is completely silenced, and I'm mortally afraid. And it was like, the things that he was saying, like, it's just a top hat. This,
Or it
like
should
somebody
be,
should have
right?
it with a cane and having a good time on the town. But he was
Definitely not a good time.
no. And whenever I told him like the origin of it or whatnot, it put all the puzzles into place for him, and it came out, and he was like, I see it now. I'm watching it burn. I'm sitting like at my desk. I need to leave the country, the continent, and just the terror that it all brought about, and how much paranormal activity has just been fueled.
I've had a recent encounter with escaping.
Really?
Myself. I have.
You do look a little different than I remember.
No, I'm Carrie, obviously.
Oh, yeah, good.
Anyway, moving on. That's really incredible. And one other thing that I wanted to ask you about was, did you find something that was involved in like Scientology or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. So I fancy myself a deal hunter and a good find.
Same.
Going to thrift stores or estate sales or whatever, like there's a gem, almost always a gem. And if like my sister rants on me because she does it for a living. She has a vintage clothing store. She's always at sales and stuff like that. And I won't do anything for months, and I'll just have a feeling today, and I go and find amazing things.
Yeah.
And I actually got 3 pounds of pure silver for $5 that way.
Amazing.
That actually is worth about 5 times that much because it's Art Deco silver. Anyways,
Amazing.
so I'm at the Salvation Army near my house up in Frizzell, Minnesota. Regular old thrift store, let me say. And I get in there, and I like looking at the artwork. I like looking at anything and everything, really, but there's certain days I'll just like feel like, something's happening over here at this place, and I see these 2 big things, and I'm like, I don't know who this is or what this L-Ron, what is it, L-Ron or
L. Ron Hubbard.
L-Ron. And I see that it's like this lithograph, and it's got a silver plaque on the bottom of both of them, and one of them is of this guy, the character, he's on a horse and he's got like a club, and he's running away from some like space car, and then the next one, he's standing on the top of this mountain, he's got like some blaster laser thing or whatever, and I asked my much more knowledgeable friend about these things, Alex Ward, about this. He said, well, that's L. Ron Hubbard. And he ends up buying me the book Battlefield Earth, and he tells me this is the whole Scientology, what have you. And I ended up paying $25 because we're talking deals here. And
That's incredible.
They're valued at thousands each.
Yeah. That's
And
what an
they're,
incredible find.
Originals from the 70s. And
Yeah, and for those of you who do not know who L. Ron Hubbard is, he was a science fiction writer that then basically created his own cult or religion. Yes, that is still around today. So what a find.
Very prominent, yeah.
It's amazing. Well,
Yes,
thank you so much, Austin, for
you for having me. It
joining
was a pleasure to
us
be here,
again
as
on
always.
the Witching Hour. Hopefully you'll be on the next episode.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, you're always welcome.
We'll see what I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Witching Hour.